Welcome to Ask Ms Myrz, where we answer your most burning questions and solve your most nagging problems. I won't always know the answer, but I'll know someone who will. Hello, everyone. Evolve or become extinct. Boy, did we learn that last year. The pandemic plunged the world into unbelievable disruption and change, forcing us all to change the way we live and work. Reinventing ourselves has become a survival skill, and today we're squeezing the secrets out of the master at the game who's been decades ahead in the art of the pivot, creative director Marlon Rivera, who has been slash still is a film director, producer, actor, fashion designer, florist, makeup artist, production designer, costume designer, university professor. Did I miss anything? Please welcome Mr. Marlon Rivera. Hi,
Hi, good
Marlon.
afternoon. Hi, hello.
Hi. Good
Good morning,
morning. Welcome to Ask Ms Myrz. How are you?
Good as can be. I hope you're also good. I hope everyone is good right now.
Right. How are you? What have you been up to?
Uh, well, well, I haven't been shooting. Obviously, the director part is shelved for a while because all the shoots are continuing and people are doing projects. But um, I chose not to. Since nga marami naman akong mga skill sets, may mga non-face-to-face skill sets ako. So I continue to teach, to consult, to give lectures, coaching. So it's all online. So everything that I can do online and not face-to-face has been very, very useful during the pandemic.
Marami tayong revenue streams dyan.
Yes, sabi nga ng business canvas, yes, it's a revenue stream yan. But it's still not as it used to be at that level. Obviously, because you can't really go out and do your hustle, diba? So, but this is how we survive, and this is how we will do this.
And how has the art of hustling evolved in these times? Na, as you said, nga online na lahat. So, what have you been finding out to be like the situation right now?
Well, obviously the big winners are the ones with the skill that you can do on your own at home. So first is we've seen the rise of the kitchens, right? The kitchen continues to exist. I mean, hindi naman pwede isara yung kusina sa bahay. So they've been transformed or pivoted. The word pivoted into selling kitchens. The editors, I wish it's a skill I kept and I invested on. Storyboard artists. Teachers, I mean, you can coach continually online. Of course, in Kumu, obviously, there are performers. I see a lot of my friends who are from the live stage
Right.
industry, yes, diba? So sila Gab, all of these people can do concerts and selling and so on and so forth. So I think what happened was that since distance is required and congregation is not allowed, the people with skill sets that can actually transmit and communicate through the online platform, and people are willing to pay for what they're doing.
Right.
Became the big winners. Obviously, there's in the infrastructure. There's Grab. I mean, there's delivery systems and cloud kitchens and so on and so forth. So actually, we are reinventing ourselves. Wala tayong choice nowadays. No? So that's what's happening. Yeah, that's what's happening.
Right. Yung walang choice is the key, right? Like,
Yes.
nakakapagod man. Like I was about to ask you, while you're doing something ba, are you always thinking of your next step or your next incarnation? Nakakapagod ba yun? Or these days, essential talaga? No
I
choice.
think it's essential. It's no choice. Obviously, in the past, pre-pandemic, some of us had the privilege to choose, right?
Right.
When to change and which parts of our lives you can change. But right now, we're all in this together. I mean, everyone is forced to change. I think even the most people with the most privilege, yung kaya namang may ulam naman sa ref, that can live through the pandemic. They all have to change because there's also the social aspect. I mean, what we're forgetting about the pandemic is that it's not just the business that's suffering. I mean, the mind is suffering, mental health is suffering.
Right.
The loss of contact. I mean, I can't imagine people who are living in condos alone, diba? Having seen their families in months on end. So there's a lot of these forced change, that we have to deal with. And I think that's the heart of the reinvention. Of course, it's nice if you have the leisure to reinvent yourself ahead of time. But
Right.
us right now, we don't have it. No, we really have to change. And if you don't have the mindset for change and reinvention, then you'd be suffering. You have more discomfort, I think, if you're not prepared for this.
Can you expound on the mindset for change and reinvention? Maybe pre-pandemic and now during the pandemic. Like, what kind of mindset do you need to have in order to make it fertile for change?
Um, Well, let's frame it first. Reinvention can be as simple as as simple as a makeover. I mean that to put it lightly, but
Yes.
of course, reinvention really sits in the heart of your identity as a person, right? I mean, something that is tangible, something that you can actually feel and people can respond to. Na parang, uy, nagbago siya, di ba? So it could be, you can suddenly be borta, you can suddenly be healthy, you can reallocate, you can go, you can change jobs, and so on and so forth, or you can just join a cult, di ba? That's also a form of reinvention,
Right.
change of mind. Because me, I'm a believer that behavior is informed by belief. Belief informs behavior talaga for me. So we're nothing but a set of opinions and beliefs in our heads, right? And accordingly, because of these beliefs, then we behave in a certain way. It flows from that. So for me, the mindset, even before the pandemic, it's really important that people understand that it's okay to change because we are loath to change as creatures.
Right, right.
Because change is uncomfortable, change has risk, and lastly, society doesn't really encourage change so much. We like to put people in pigeonholed in places, right? I mean, I met Myrza when obviously when Myrza was a model, and then Myrza became an editor, and so it's uncomfortable for some people that when we rearrange the furniture, diba? Parang how do we track people, diba? So uh, it's that mindset that we need to change. That it can be done, and we do it every day. We do it every day.
Right. Right.
Hindi lang si Madonna ang may karapatang mag-change. And even Madonna says,
Right.
she doesn't reinvent herself. She just peels the layer off, to reveal something inside. So that's another thing about reinvention that people need to understand. It's not something that you suddenly become something else, right? I mean, it's something that's already inside you, a passion, an unfulfilled dream, maybe a skill set that you haven't applied. So it's all within you already. So that's also something that we need to understand, that it's difficult, but it's not strange to some degree, di ba? Parang kumaga, like in makeup, right? You just highlight your eyes. You still have the same eyes, but you highlight the eye this time, no? So the mindset has to be, we have to understand that change is inevitable, and that we can change, and that it's not a zero-sum game. I mean, you get it? I mean,
Right.
when you become something else, you don't lose everything else that you've ever been. You
Right.
still carry that with you, right? I mean, when you resign when you move from modeling to publication, you still understood how it is to be a model, right? I mean, you didn't lose that part of you. I mean, obviously you didn't lose the cheekbones. You didn't lose any of that,
Well, I
right?
think
So
I'm losing them a little bit.
but they're still
Go ahead.
fine, diba? So that's what I'm saying, that people are afraid that if I move to another field, I will lose everything else that I've gained from the previous field I've been in, or the other fields I've been. But that's not true. I mean, even for me, I mean, when I become a florist, I mean, I don't give up any of the other,
Right.
mindsets that I have, right? So these are the things that I want, people to understand, that we are conditioned to believe that change is uncomfortable, change is risky, and that change, disrupts the systems. And people don't like disrupting all these systems, diba? Just an anecdote, for example, when I went into makeup, I was oh, there was my dog. So when I moved to makeup, I was in the corporate world. I was at the VP level, and people were asking me, why will you do that, right? What will you do that? I mean, there's no diploma in, wala namang diploma na beautician before, di ba? So it carried so much baggage. And if I didn't have the privilege of ignorance na parang wala akong pakialam, alam mo yung ganun, I wouldn't have done that, diba? Because
Yes.
it's giving up so much. That's what they said. You're giving up so much for another thing that is less
Or
prestigious, I guess.
perceived to be
Yes,
less.
perceived to be.
And this
So
was
I
at a
think,
time when makeup artists were not the esteemed profession that it is considered to be today. And you were actually doing makeup in the counters of restaurants.
yes. I mean, of course, Rustan's na to, di ba? This is already Rustan, so parang it's like the premier shopping,
Right, but
shopping
still.
space, di ba? But still, it's seen as counter girl, di ba? I mean, this whole lang idea, I mean, that's what
Yes, I
started
hate
it,
that
is
lang. Yeah.
that lang, di ba? Writer lang, as as you would say, or artista lang. I mean, there's always this valuation that our profession defines our value, our total value, di ba? Our total sum of our value. So, yeah, it's. I hope that here we try to understand the scripts, the stories we tell ourselves, and the stories we tell each other, about each other. I think this needs to be re-examined, especially during the time of the pandemic, when we need to re-examine all these things, because these are the things that prevent us from reinventing ourselves, or at least tweaking ourselves. Pwede naman tweak, di ba? So tweak lang muna,
Right.
reinvention.
Right.
We have to get used to it, and it all starts with our belief system. It all starts
Right.
always in the mind, nowhere else.
And sometimes the biggest enemy is actually ourselves. Like it's so easy, for example, to conveniently have the same hairstyle for decades, or to not evolve out of the same MAC lipstick from the 90s on a very physical, superficial
Yes,
level, or to be
agree.
set in your ways. How do you fight this if you've been stuck in a rut for all these years on a physical level, and more so on a mental level or emotional level?
Well, first, I would like to say, we're in the age of disclaimers, right? You do you, I would just say this
Right,
worked for
right.
me. So, reinvention is not for everyone. Some people are just comfortable with what they have, right? I mean, and
Correct.
if you're okay there, congratulations, right? So it's not for everyone. Um, but if you are, feeling, di ba, when you're sitting down and you feel discomfort, what do? You adjust to the way you sit, right? I mean, you have to maghahanap ka ng magandang posisyon, di ba? So, with like example, just physical things, no? Reinvention can happen, from outside, inside. It can be forced on you. It can come from inside. You willfully bring it out, manifest it to the universe, if I may say that. So what you can do is you have to figure out once in a while. I think, I know you can always go back, as I say about makeup, right? You can always wash it off, but you must try different things and new things, mainly because this is the path into your mind, right? To change something allows you to say, hey, I have the more confidence now to change maybe my eyeshadow. You get it?
Right.
So all the
Right.
little bits. So the habit of approaching change that way, I can do it in increments. Hindi na, parang Tarzan, di ba? I don't have to let go of the bagging that I have right now until I get to the other bagging, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so
Right.
it can be done, and it should be a daily practice. I think it should be a daily practice. I mean,
Right.
Myrza, I hate to say this, but this is not a political talk, but there's so much to be reinvented in the world, right? I mean, there's so many systems that oppress, that exclude people. The world requires a big reinvention right now, right? I mean,
Right.
big reinvention, especially in the pandemic. We've seen
Definitely.
how the inequity and equality. Some people have less resources to survive. So the world needs to be reinvented, and we should all be part of that reinvention. So I suggest that start something small. Kung ayaw mo ng same shade lip gloss, kaya twig to twig, di ba? From talagang twig, di ba? Or the old poppy lipstick that was sold on Mix, di ba? Super dry from Australia. You can start with just go for gloss, just add gloss, or go for something creamy. You have to entertain the thought, because once you stop changing, I think you've lost so much. I mean, when you congeal, I mean, what's the point, right? And people who don't change and who don't have the habit to change or understand change are the ones that are most vulnerable during times like this, right? I mean,
Right.
the world will not ask permission. Hi, Myrza, can we change now? It doesn't, right? The world changes, even just in the micro way. Your family, your friends, they change, and
Right.
therefore you must understand. You don't have to change with everything that changes around you, right? But you have to understand the concept that yes, that's change. It's my decision not to change,
Right.
but at least have the awareness that this is my decision, and not just say what's happening. Ano nagaganap, di ba? How come no one's talking to me now, di ba? Because maybe because everyone has moved on and you haven't, right? So I think that the thing that you can start from the outside world, even habits, right? Habits set. You can, if you don't want to exercise, just walk. I know it's easy to say. Me,
Right.
I never go to the. I mean, sometimes I go to the gym, but during the pandemic, I just walk around the village for 5 kilometers. So you just have to start somewhere. You just
Right.
have to start somewhere because those little cracks, they allow the bigger change to happen, I think, in our lives.
Okay. Okay. Let's say major change now, career change. How do uh, you make a calculated risk, right?
Yes, yes.
Uh, Obviously, I don't know how you made the leap from vice president to makeup artist, but obviously you had to consider your income. You had to consider, diba? Do you have a parachute to save you in case mag-fail uh, yung next career incarnation? What can you say about that? What's your advice
That
for that?
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, really, I mean, it's okay. So as I said, but there are privileges to people to change. I mean, of course, sometimes if you're a woman and you become a mom and you're caught up in that
Right.
you don't have the time for it, right? You're just taking care of
Right.
kids, you're stuck at home. So yes, you don't have that. Some people don't have savings, the savings to change careers. So there are privileges, and sometimes you're not in a position of power to change, obviously, or to reinvent your career. So having said that, it can still be done. For me, for example, the way I transition is that, as I said, it's always been inside me. I've been doing makeup for theater in school, in Ateneo, in Ateneo. So I've been doing that. So it was already in me. We would do makeup, one Sarti and myself, we would do makeup in the casting department. So the makeup thing has already existed in me, long before that.
Right.
So when I wanted to do it, I saved time for myself. So at night, I would lock the door and I would change my makeup. I would do my makeup. You have to do that. You have to, because when you change into something, it requires mastery, right? Repetition and practice.
Yes.
So you have to invest that. So I would spend an hour or two on my own every night doing that, and also doing makeup in the counter. And before I announced myself to be a makeup artist or I tried to get a paid gig, diba? I was already doing it for the last 2 years. Diba?
Right.
So you have to squirrel away the time. I don't know how to do it for other people, but for me, I had to do that. I had to do that, squirrel away the time to do it. Bumili kami ng mga makeup, say James Cooper, all those things. Bought
James.
James Cooper a makeup kit
Caboodle.
from Caboodle. Yes, mine was from the hardware store. So you have to do the time so that when you announce yourself to be something else, then
You're ready.
you're ready, right?
Right.
As a teacher, I was already doing training for the ad school of basic advertising. So when I became a teacher, a senior lecturer, it was already there. It was just repurposed. So that's what I'm saying, that it should be something in you already. I mean, reinvention is not a ground up change, right?
Right.
You have to use some parts of you, obviously, and you just add a dash of it, which formalizes the change and change the career. And obviously, you have to save. I mean, I know it's
Right.
hard to say. It's really hard to say you have to save, guys. I mean, I know that life is difficult, and I believe poverty is systemic, and you end up where you started. Where you started. Starting conditions are very important, but you have to live within your means. And when I was before I do a reinvention, I would save so much.
Right.
Suddenly my trips are not there. Of course, meron pa rin presence ng konti, di ba? I don't buy stuff so that I can buy things for the things that I'm doing, di ba? So
Right.
it has to be planned. You cannot just suddenly wake up one morning and say,
Right.
I'm a goddess today. You can't. You can't. You have to prepare. You have to do the mastery because skill requires mastery. So it's a skill
Right.
set, repetition, time. you need some kind of a safety net, so my income when I left the agency at the time obviously dropped, right? Puro gastos yun, di ba? You have to buy your shoe mura para social kang tignan, di ba? You have to do all these things because it's part of the packaging, di ba? But you can plan it. You can plan it, and I believe in the premeditated life. You have to premeditate everything. You can look casual and effortless, but you have to plan. di ba? You have to plan long. Maybe because I'm not a believer in astrology, but I'm a Capricorn, diba? So we are very premeditated, and we prepare for a very long time before we come out again and say, "Hey, I'm different now." I mean, so it can be done, but you have to do the time, and you have to be deliberate about it.
So there's concurrent preparation, plus safety net, plus a lot of planning. So people kasi think you've been an overnight success in every incarnation that you've had. So they're saying, wow, first directorial job for septic tank, award-winning na kaagad. Little did they know that. What was your preparation prior to that?
Well, obviously, that's my dream. I mean, my dream was, of course, to become a star, to become a dancer, but it didn't happen. So I became a director, right? So I directed for stage. I was an assistant director for commercials and movies. So I was doing production design. So I was doing everything else except directing. You get it? I was a producer for 100. So I was already doing my I was doing all the bits and pieces.
The groundwork,
yes. And I came in quite late, which is another point I want to make. That I came in. I directed at what, 40? I mean, in my that's my first directorial job for a film. But I directed my first stage when I was in high school, college, go to first year college, and before my freshman year. So all the skill sets, para siyang Lego, alam mo yun, it's already in there, diba? You just put it together. Of course, it's good that I came in late because I had, a bit more wisdom and maybe a bit more clout. But of course, deep inside, I was so scared when I did my first directorial job. But yun nga, tama yun, parang, wow, ang galing naman. You don't come fully formed. That's an illusion. That's an illusion. Even in design, it took me so long. I mean, I bought ukay stuff and then broke them down, understood the pattern and patterned them. So it took a while, and I was working with M. Barreto, who's a designer, and there was a shop there. So kumbaga, nagmamanman na ako, just watching, how it's done.
Scheming.
Scheming, yes. So that's what I'm saying na parang, if you're open to change, you can spot the opportunities. And when you spot the opportunities, you can put the dots together and connect them and say, oh, if I put these things together, I can do this, right? I can do this. So that's really an illusion, I think, because you want to come out as parang, wow, you're so blessed, you're so lucky, diba? Which is, there's some luck to some degree, but it's really not. You had to do the time to do it, to come out hindi malasado, alam mo hindi malasado. So pag-reveal mo, parang, oh, ang ganda mo na ngayon, diba? Ilang taon mo nang hinahanda.
Perfectly poached. I was really amazed when nabasa ko na lang that you were a runway success. And I'm like, paano siya naging fashion designer? Yun pala, costume designer ka na early on in theater. You want to talk about that?
Yes. So, well, again, by accident, no. I mean, spurred by, by. So when I was in Tanghalang Ateneo, no one wanted to do costumes, right? So there was this play, Beckett. I mean, it's so no one was doing the costume. We didn't have the budget, so I had to do the costumes myself. So I would go to the Divisoria, I would buy the kacha, and there's a makina that we brought into the dressing room in Science in G306. And during my break, I would stitch the costumes, right? So, and then of course, Badong Bernal went back to Ateneo to teach again, scenic and costume design. So I took that elected class, and it got me interested in doing it. So I was doing the costume, I mean, not in a professional way, but I was already doing costume. Obviously, my sister took Slim's fashion design. Yes, nung when we were in high school, and I loved it, no? So I would try to draw like Danilo Franco, alam mo gano'n.
Oh.
Oh, yes, di ba? Kasi maganda yung drawing ni Danilo Franco, mapanga, di ba, malinis, di ba? So it was already there. It was already there. I was already styling. Obviously, I was styling, for billboards, for ads. So I was already involved in clothes. So when I decided to do it, yung nga sinabi ko, I mean, I went around Japan and so on and so forth, Hong Kong, and started buying things that I like. And then I started to break them apart. And then, alam mo, titrace mo sa Manila paper yung pattern.
Yes.
Paano ko kaya palalakihin ito? Paano kaya kung medyo bumukas ang sleeves dyan? So that's what I did. So it wasn't strange to me. It wasn't strange to me when I became that. No? Obviously, when I did, parang, ay, nag-close siya ng Fashion Week. First round. Nag-open ng Fashion Week, nag-close ng Fashion Week, di ba? So, of course, we're also lucky to be at a certain age that, meron ka ng kilala, di ba? I mean, it also helps, di ba? It also helps. So that's what's happening in fashion. And of course, and this is a point that we will make later, that, but when I got there and I realized the business model was not friendly to what I wanted. I wanted to become I wanted ready to wear, but you already have bench, you have folded and hung, you have camiseta, you have all these people, right? I couldn't do that volume. I really wanted to do ready to wear. I don't want to do made to order. There's nothing wrong with MTO, making, dresses for brides and so on and so forth, because I think it takes so much effort to service one client's desires. I mean, ganon. So I said, this is not a business model for me. So that's why I stopped doing fashion, is because it wasn't a business that I wanted to be in the end, because I felt that the business model is, paano ka naman lalaban sa, gawa ng galing sa Bangladesh, galing sa Thailand, di ba? Yung mga, yung inaangkat, the buy and sell, di ba? You can't compete with that, di ba? You look at SM, you look at all these department stores. They have so much production, muscle, and they have the PC for, for paying suppliers and so on and so forth, which I didn't have. So I felt na parang, I love fashion, I love to design, I still love it up to now. But it wasn't a career that I wanted to pursue in the end, because I didn't have the right elements to pursue it the way I wanted to pursue it. And again, that's important. You have to create the conditions for your own success. Right. Diba? If you feel that you don't have enough muscle to create that condition, what's the point, right? So after six shows, I said, parang ayoko yata magtingi-tingi. Ayoko ng tingi. I wanted to do ready to wear mass production, but I didn't have the resources to do that. So that's why I left. So it's also okay to quit. It's also okay to quit. It's not a problem when you quit.
So you also have to know when to do next.
Yes. Or some people feel kasi it's next or goodbye. When in fact it's just, meron naman kasing tinatawag na diyan ka muna. You get it?
Okay.
I mean, I could revive it some other time.
True.
I mean, maybe in my dotage, pwede akong manahe in my super senior years, diba? So you never leave things behind. It's not a zero-sum game. People say that when you move to another field, you've lost everything you've had. No, you don't. You carry it with you, and until it's final curtain call, until mapegs ka, it's still there. It exists.
Right.
It exists. The skills exist, and those identities continue to exist.
I love the way you perceived age to be an asset rather than a drawback, because I've always felt, for example, when I transitioned from computer programming to modeling at age 22, I felt quite old. I'm like, oh my God, everyone who's starting out modeling started at 13. And here I am, an old woman at 22, attempting to start. Or for example, when I became an editor at age 27, I thought, oh my God, everyone's a journalism graduate. And who am I coming from the modeling world trying to be an editor when everyone has had a head start in the game? And then now that I'm trying to be a host, people in the industry have been hosting for 20 years, and here I am in my 50s, a newbie. So I've always seen it as a disadvantage, but here you are saying that it's an asset. Please expound.
Yes, it's an asset. Okay, again, this is one of the things that we're told not to do, right? I mean, I think it's ageist. I mean, it's
Yeah.
This
So
ageism.
you're too old. You're too old to begin again, right?
Yeah. What do you mean you're too old to begin again? You wake up every morning, older, a day older, so and you begin, right? So, um, first, of course, there's something intrinsic about, some things that, maybe hindi na ako pwede talaga maging gymnast, di ba? I mean, there's just the physiology of that, right? My bones are brittle, so there is that. But in most things, and especially in careers, we don't like old people, especially if you have a younger boss, di ba? Parang awkward, di ba? Awkward. And I think this is again another frame set in our heads, na parang this is another barrier in our heads, thinking na parang kailangan matanda ang boss mo, alam mo gano'n. I mean, it doesn't have to be, right?
Yeah.
What I like about old people is that, of course, they're more calm. I mean, hopefully mas kalmante, di ba? They have good habits. They have perspective, and I think that should be harnessed. If you hire someone older than you, then you can actually be an ally, right? It's an ally, di ba? And then may mga jobs na hindi kailangan ng gigil, di ba? I mean, may mga jobs that don't require gigil, kailangan ng chill, di ba? And I guess older people have that. So there is a lot of value in old people. And I think, can you imagine, yun ang nakakapagtaka eh. The older you get, the more skills and wisdom you acquire, the more useless you're perceived to be. I mean, why, di ba? Why? It's such a Bolshevik way of thinking that you need to create something, di ba? Sometimes the product is you, di ba? The product is you, and like you, I mean, your image, your previous incarnation actually help get to the next stage, right? So hire old people, and they're not useless. I mean, in fact, I find them to be an advantage. I don't have a bias against young people because I love the energy, the freshness,
Yeah,
all of that.
definitely.
But old people, I say old people, old people, they, they can also teach you a thing or two. Because it's even when you the boss subordinate relationship, it's also perceived as a top down idea, right? I'm teaching you something, right? Someone older than you.
Right.
That's an outmoded way of looking at the world ever since naman, di ba? It's just supported by society to be so. But otherwise, your subordinate can teach you something, di ba? Because they have some kind of wisdom, di ba? And it doesn't mean that they were delayed in their development or they're not good. That's why they didn't reach your boss level. Because every office is different, right? Iba't ibang criteria. So parang mas chill. Sana we should relax. No? We should relax that older people can reinvent themselves, and I think it's never too late to be anything except for a gymnast. Siguro. I mean, some things you just require a lot of use, diba? But otherwise, you can
I guess
reinvent yourself.
see what you bring to the table and have confidence in it, right?
Yes. Of
All
course, marami rin
right.
tayong our last, of course, our generation is we're marami tayong imposter syndrome complex, diba? So
Correct.
that's what happened to us.
All right. Now we are going to give them your uh,
5 lies.
insights
Yes.
on the lies that society tells us about reinvention. First of all, how do you do and what do you do? Please
Okay.
explain.
This is common in the Philippines, Filipino culture, and I think most parts of the world. We like to locate, when we meet strangers, the first thing we do is we locate them, right? We locate them in terms of status, demographics. Una tanong, anong pangalan mo? Ay, aboite, sosyal, ayaga, wow, di ba? I mean, we like to locate people that way. We want their name, not just because we want to
Right.
know them, but because we want to understand.
Right.
Where are they coming from? Who are
Right.
their people, right? Of course, when you go to the other countries, I mean, when you say, "Hi, I'm something Ayala" or something, they couldn't care less, right? They couldn't care less. So we like to locate people that way, and then we locate people in terms of like where their origins. For example, genealogy, parang the race, the seasons. Are they the seasons from what's this,
Pangasinan.
New Manila? Alam mo ganun,
Okay.
I know your tita, di ba? So we like to,
Right.
our identity is built into these things, right? Status, origin, and so on and so forth. And last is we ask, what do you do? Di ba? Anong ginagawa mo? Uy, si Myrza, editor-in-chief yan, dating model, di ba? We give a rundown of these things. Of course, we never
Right.
mention if, this is Marlon, basurero dati. We don't do that, right? There's so much status attached to how do you do and what do you do. Therefore, we have this notion that our identity is built into what we do in life, right? doktor yan. Wala kasing diploma, other things, di ba? I mean, that's why it ruins the idea of, we call it vocational lang.
Yes,
Or
yes.
hindi, ay certificate lang yan, hindi yan diploma, di ba? I mean, there's so much burden and so
Wait.
much weight placed on these things, which is really wrong because, you know, we're a service industry country, right? I mean, we are that. What's wrong with being in a call center? What's being wrong with these things? That's what I'm saying, di ba? So, we are now led to believe, especially our generation, right? I mean, doctor, konti lang option mo, doctor, lawyer, di ba? Yung the big ones, di ba? Banking, you're not allowed to go into any other field. So, first is that we have to understand that these scripts that we tell ourselves, na parang, yung nanay mo pag may kang jowa, sabihin, saan magaling yan? Di ba? Saan magaling yan? Saan magaling yan? Sa bahay nila, di ba? Or, ano bang trabaho niya? Mabubuhay ka ba niyan? Of course, these are practical questions, right? I mean, let's not kid ourselves. But still, the idea that our identity is so tied up to this. That's why it's so hard to let go, to reinvent. Because you feel na parang, graduate na ako eh. May degree na ako, di ba? Bakit pa ako lilipat sa ibang industriya?
Oo, tama.
So that's kind of, of course, positions are attached to certain professions, di ba? Doc, di ba? Kaya ako, when I call it, uy, direct, di ba? Direct Marlon, di ba?
Direct.
I find it so, it's okay, but I find it so reductive in a sense, na parang, that's not the only thing I do, di ba? So, yeah, so this is the first thing that we need to be aware of. That it doesn't matter. Of course, it matters where you're from, obviously, right? I mean, again, starting conditions on poverty and systemic ideas. But the thing is, you can be different. You can change. You are not attached to being a doctor. And if you're a doctor, you can say, kung maging beautician ka man, marunong ka pa rin mag-CPR, di ba? So you get it. So don't be so attached to that. And
yes.
as I always say, it's not a zero-sum game. You don't give up your past. You just bring it over to the next incarnation. So that's what we need to be careful with. The idea of, taga saan ba yan? Ano bang trabaho niyan? Titulado ba yan? Diplomado ba? And you get it.
Yes.
There's so much to do that doesn't. Of course, the education system needs to be reinvented, obviously, right? I mean, we are conflating the idea of school with career, di ba? Parang pinapasa ka na parang tapusin mo yan para makapagtrabaho ka. It doesn't have to be that way. So that's again a view that I wanted to see, that change the mindset.
We are not what we do or where we came from.
Yes, di ba? Because you can change. I mean, you can change. I mean, Ralph Lauren is di ba? So that's something that I think was one of the first things.
Or Roy Halston.
Right.
Okay, next, jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes. This is a shade term, right? I mean, this is not a positive statement, right?
Yes.
When you say, "Oh my God, you're jack of all trades, master of none," there is an implicit idea there that you have not mastered anything because you want to do everything.
Or in Tagalog, hindi niya kasi alam kung anong gusto niyang gawin.
Gusto niya. Oo, di ba? Hindi alam mo gusto niyang gawin.
Hindi siya makafocus.
Hindi makafocus. Yeah, di ba? Hindi makafocus. Mars, di ba? I mean, may multitasking. I mean, there's multitasking. Obviously, you need to focus at every point that you're doing. As I say, when I'm an assistant director, hindi ko pinapakalaman yung vision ng director. I just need to take care of what I need to do there, right? That's the way to multitask, right? So there's a shame in having more than one skill set. When you should be celebrating it, di ba? Na parang, oh my gosh, you added a new skill, di ba? You can move to the next level. We don't do that. We say, jack of all trades, master of none. It's seen as indecisive, as fickle-mindedness, and so on and so forth, which is not true. You can always call yourself the Renaissance man. Charot, di ba? You get it? I mean, there are better ways of viewing multiple masteries. And I love about multiple mastery is this, not just in skill, but in mind. If we have more mindsets, if you have, you understand, for example, design and fashion and photography and so on and so forth, the more mindsets you have, the easier you can solve a problem because you can triangulate from different points of view, diba? So interdisciplinary thinking is so critical, and therefore it's good to have a lot of skills. Even if you're just a dabbler in one and a master in the other, a competent one in one, and maybe someone, a hobbyist in the other, they're all valid. They're all valid. And therefore, we should not be shamed for acquiring more. I have my knitting needle here, but we should not be shamed for acquiring yet another skill, especially when you grow old, diba? So yun ang ano ko dyan
Right.
sa, ayoko yung jack of all trades, master of none, parang, excuse me, di ba?
The more, the merrier.
Yes, the more naman sila. Gawa lang ng gawa. Sabi nga namin sa industry namin, gawa lang ng gawa.
Ayan na ang mga ageist sayings. You
Yes.
can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yes, that's what they say. So that's why older workers, older work employees are seen as less and less valuable because they're not trainable. When in fact, that's not true. That is not true. Of course, the myth alone that you can teach dogs new tricks. I mean, you can. You really can. It's just another reinforcement, right? It's just more treats and more good boy, good boy. It can be done. And so are old people, right? We can be trained. And I think I like training old people also because I know some people have bad habits, but at least they can process it in a very triangulated way. So you can learn new tricks. You can. In fact, we should be learning more tricks as we grow old, right? To prevent the rusting of the mind, right? So we should actually be learning new tricks. So I also don't like that you can't teach old dogs new tricks. I think it's very ageist. Diba? The first one is afraid. The first one is classist, The second,
Right.
the second one is a fear of being threatened by. Ikaw na nga magaling, ang dahil mong alam, diba?
Right. Anti-intellectualism.
Anti-intellectualism. And the third one is really ageist, diba? Because
Right.
scientifically, you can teach old dogs new tricks, especially people who are dogs, diba? So it can be done. It can be done.
I think rather than mental capacity, it's probably the mindset nga, because there are some older people who are not willing to learn new things.
Agree.
Maybe because of
Yeah.
their belief in their capacity or comfort,
Yes.
right?
It's mindset. I agree. The word really is, it always goes back to the mindset. Because the capacity will always be there. It's really the
Right.
mindset that I don't want to do this. Pag pinangunahan mo yan ng I can't do this, wala na pa tayong pupuntahan, di ba? I mean, where's the conversation there, di ba? If you say, I can't do it because I don't want to do it, then you should re-examine yourself and say, don't try, diyan ka na lang sa bahay. Just do one thing.
I think I see this especially in technophobic older people who will say, hindi ko na alam yung computer.
Ano lang yan? Hindi ba privilege lang yan, Myrza? Kasi marami sila mga bata sa bahay na parang,
Yes.
yan. Hindi naman yung bobo yan, di ba? Ang tawag lang dyan ay ginagamit yung
Tamad.
para gamit tamad lang yan. So,
Or may in-house tech support sila.
in-house tech support sila. Naglalambing lang yan.
Right.
Yes.
Number 4, quitters never win and winners never quit.
Yes. If you notice, this is all post in the thought catalog sort of thinking, di ba? Yung quotable quotes, di ba? It's true, you need to try harder. That's part of, for example, like design thinking. You have to keep on iterating until you're able to solve the user problem. It's true, you don't quit. But there's so much stigma in saying I can't do it anymore, diba? There's so much stigma here. Why, diba? Kung ayaw mo na talagang kaya, you can't quit. There should be no stigma in there should not be stigma in being able to shift and move, diba? As I said, it's not a zero-sum game, diba? You're not quitting everything, diba? You're just quitting certain phases of that journey. So there's so much of that, and then when you do it, you're perceived now as weak, right? Oh my gosh, you're a quitter, diba? You stop doing it. Why keep on pushing, like in a bad relationship, for example, in a toxic office, diba? You have to quit, or something that you know that hanggang dito na lamang po ako at maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. Yung skill set ko is up to here, then you quit, diba? You quit and move on, diba? You're not quitting your whole humanity, diba? You're just quitting this one thing that I feel is not working for me. But also don't quit naman too early sa mga bagets.
Right, I was about to ask, how much time do you give it enough to sustain something productive?
Gosh, this is the 1 billion question, the know thyself question, right? Know thyself question. That's why self-awareness should be cursed on everyone so that they have this, they understand, but they understand. You have to work with people who can give you the right feedback. Of course, understand that Mars talagang hindi mo talaga kaya, Mars. Talagang 4'11" ka lang, hindi ka pwedeng maging supermodel right now. Maybe the next generation. So you also need honest people around you to do this. And then you have to understand that every action we do has a consequence, obviously, right? Obviously, from a corporate standpoint, if I pull out your resume and I call HR and I do a back check and I see that you have only stayed in a job
Yes,
for 3 months,
hopper.
job hopper, then for me that's not good. For me that's not good. I have to tell you that that's not good. Only because I may have judged that applicant, so harshly, but it also shows me a red herring because there's investment in training, right? There's investment in training, there's what is called, a churn, and and so remember that. I mean, you do this with caution, di ba? You cannot just say, sabi kasi ni Marlon, quit lang ng quit. No, that's not what I meant, di ba? You have to try hard and you have to be aware of how far you can take this, di ba? Of course, if you suffer, if it affects your mental health, your relationship, and your physical health, I think that's a big sign. That's a big sign to say, or you're endangering yourself. That's a big sign to walk out of anything, right? I mean, that's really for sure. Just don't make a history out of it. Because, sabi nga nila, di ba, habit is, in the end, character, di ba? I mean, that whole equation, di ba? So, yeah, don't be afraid to quit and say, I can't do this. There's no shame in being, it's not a weakness, right? It's just, I can't do this, I will not do this. But also, do not do it just to test things, I mean, hindi mo yung job hopper,
Right.
di ba? Kasi right now, di ba,
Or
everyone wants to quit.
or what if ayaw mo rin maging dilettante? You want to be a
Yes.
reinventor but not a dilettante. So in your case, with the exception of the fashion designing thing, how do you move on to the next? Or are you still juggling many balls in the air? Are you
Yeah,
from time to
I am.
time still a florist, still
Yes. Pag may tumawag, bakit hindi, di ba? May tumawag, bakit hindi? It's called an arsenal, right? I mean, it's called a menu of skills, di ba?
right.
So, for example, teaching, I quit the university teaching for, I was there for 7 years and I quit. But the teaching gene remains. I mean, I still had my, my lectures and so on and so forth. So there is, that's what I don't know how to stress it enough, that who you are, once you've done it, doesn't go away. The title
Right.
goes away. The title, the appendage, the position, maybe the pay scale goes away. But none of these skill sets go away, di ba? I mean, you don't, even when I quit, if you tell me now, Marlon, can you design something for me? I will, di ba?
Right.
I will, because I'm still in touch
Nandyan
with
lang
fashion.
lahat.
Andiyan lang lahat, di ba? I still watch fashion, fashion YouTube channels, di ba? So I still know what's happening, di ba? What's all the collab, what's happening with whose designers moved on to that and this and this. So I'm still in that space in my mind. I'm not a practitioner in that space, which is a total different thing. So
Right.
don't give up, don't throw everything away, di ba?
Right.
Keep some.
So number 5 is a sexist statement. Women are
Yeah.
fickle-minded. Or if you're
Yes.
a man and you choose to reinvent, they might say you're not
Yeah,
manly
you're
enough.
weak, di ba? You quit. That was number 4, di ba? If you're a man, you're a quitter. If you're a
Yeah.
woman, you're fickle-minded, right?
Right.
Again, these are scripts that we need to get out of our heads. We need to flush them out. We need to get them out of the way, because that is a judgment. That's a judgment on weakness, right? Fickle-minded. Babago-bago ang isip. Babae kasi. Babago-bago ang isip. I mean, how sexist can that be, right? I mean, everyone can change their mind, not just women, di ba? I mean, the whole LGBTQ can change their minds if they wanted to. So I don't. This is all that. Yuval Harari ka naman, di ba? I mean, this is all there's an intersectionality here, di ba? About women and men become toxic because they also can express themselves. Old people, I mean, classes
Right.
in terms of so in the reinvention space, all those 5 things actually have intersections, di ba? And we're all using all this language, all these sayings, because sayings are seen to be true, right? This is the point of rhetoric, right? If it's quotable, it must be true, which is not true again, di ba? So all of these things, the 5 things come together. I don't want to say, but to some degree, to oppress and control people from changing, from reinventing themselves. And we must be careful about this, because in the end, these are the old people who cannot change, women who are victimized for changing, diba? People who are multi-skilled and interdisciplinary are punished for these things. So all of these things are punishable in the way we construct the way we understand reinvention, diba? Huwag mong gawin niya nakakatakot yan, diba? Uy, baka sabihin nila, ano ka pa bago-bago ang isip mo, baka of the fairer sex, diba?
Baka
So you see all
sabihin
of,
nila kasi.
yeah, kasabihin nila, diba? So all these things really is about this, eh. It's about this.
Right.
So to change, to be able to change, especially now, we need to understand all these little scripts in our heads, little programming, little mRNA in our heads. And we need to break them apart and say na parang, kung nga ano, bakit nga ba hindi, diba? I like the word why not. That's my favorite, why not, diba? Bakit hindi? I love that word because it
Right.
allows me to think differently. So
Right.
what's wrong with fickle-minded? What's wrong with women? Are they
Right.
really truly that? Diba? To question these scripts are quite important before we can change. We can move to change.
Right.
Yun.
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 So, bakit hindi? Tanggalin ng lang.
Lang. Yes, lang, please. Tanggalin yung lang na yan. Tanggalin ng lang.
Tanggalin ng ano nang sasabihin nila. Ano pa?
Ano sabihin nila? Yan ang mga word. Yan. Ako yan. Yung lang. Ano sasabihin nila? Baka sabihin nila yun, pabago-bago ka ng isip, diba? Para kang babae. Don't go there. Don't go there.
Right.
Those are just, it short circuits our lives because we have these convenient ways of doing it. You know, we can always go online and pull out a quote and put it on our FB
On
wall,
our Instagram.
on Instagram, diba? It's so easy. It's convenient. These are all scripts, and right now, my what I'm trying to get to is what I call slow thinking. I mean, slower thinking. That's why I kind of withdrew a bit from social media because I wanted to, not because I don't like it, because I really love it. I really love it. I still watch, IG lives. I mean, IG TV things. But I have to practice slower thinking right now because I don't want to react agad. Get it? I don't want to have regurgitated, chewable quotes that I can just repost and share. I don't want my thinking to be available. I mean, parang shopping. You're just looking for the thing that works. No, I don't want that. So I'm trying to slow down my thinking. And when I read something, I don't give it judgment. I don't pass judgment on it. I just, okay, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Because there's so much we need to think about right now. For me, the biggest reinvention is really the way we think. We need, I know it's called a psychological innovation, a revolution of the way we think. So that we can move on. Change the script, we change our lives, diba? We change the scene, diba? So that's what we need to do. Maging hermit na nga pala ako next time. That's my next one. I love pala, being away from people. So I love it. That's the next plan.
Okay, how about your book of poetry? Is that your next incarnation? Poet, philosopher, hermit?
I've written poems, and it's continue to write poems. I mean, I have friends who knew me from college who know that I do that, but I am just so afraid to show them. I mean, there are only very few people that I show them to. Yes, because again, imposter syndrome, diba? Parang, oh my gosh, is this the right meter making argument that I'm making, or I am being facetious? Am I being cliched? So it's harder to that way because I guess poetry is about a more connected to who you are, diba? So yeah, that is in the works. But again, also this one I wanted to tell people, there are some skill sets. There are some facets of yourself that don't need to be shared or be turned into a business. I mean, you don't have to, right? You can keep a lot of things to yourself. I mean, that's part of slow thinking, diba? You don't need to share it, diba? You can just keep it to yourself. It doesn't lose its value nor gain any value because someone liked it. It doesn't. So for me, I have a lot of things that I want to do that I can keep to myself, and I'm happy with it. I mean, it's not a reinvention. It's just somewhere there, part of the pivot space.
Right. Do you have one last parting message for all the Pinoys who are afraid to reinvent themselves?
Una, sana nasa mabuti kayong kalagayan. At sana hindi kayo kailangan magbago kasi wala na kayong choice sa buhay. The hardest point for change is when you're forced to do it, not on your own terms. Pero ito lang ang sasabihin ko sa lahat. Lahat ng naririnig natin, lahat ng kinagisnan, lahat ng ating mga mentors, teacher, Biblia, history, yung ating kakulangan sa resources, all of these things are just part of our box. This is the world we live in. Our belief systems, our circumstances in life. What I want to say is you must question all these things. If there's one thing about reinvention is that you cannot reinvent until you've understood the materials you're given, the opportunity out there, and the elements you need to bring in to make it happen. Diba? What you have, what you need, something new, and then the situation, that's the way to reinvent yourself. So the first thing you need to question are all these things. So the next time someone, sabi mo, alam mo, wala talaga akong kita rin sa bagay ito. Mag-ano na lang kaya ako, mag-something na lang kaya ako. Don't let people tell you na parang, ay, hindi man maganda, matanda ka na dyan, or wala kang kikitain dyan. You get it? Don't believe in that. And never put yourself down. If there's also one thing, never put yourself down because sa labas ng earth, may nakapila po na mahaba. It will put you down anyway, di ba? So don't do it for yourself. Don't do it to yourself. Because it will happen anyway. So those things are, I'm a believer talaga minsan na parang, if you want to change the world, you have to change the way you think about things. I mean, gravity exists. Don't jump off the window. Okay, gravity will exist. It will not change the way based on your beliefs. But you have to really change the way you see the world or yourself before you can do anything new. Ano bang bago? Ang bago ay bagay na wala sa kaalaman mo ngayon, di ba? Not in your sphere, right? So the new will come from somewhere uncomfortable and outside the familiar space. And that's okay. Because pwede namang timing difference, di ba? Pwede namang i-timing lang yun, di ba? Pwedeng i-schedule ang reinvention. Hindi naman kailangan agad-agad. So yun ang mga sabi ko. Change the way you think about it. Always interrogate the things that are told to you, the stories that people tell about you, even the story you tell yourself in the morning. And that you have to be adventurous, especially now. I mean, we will not get out of the pandemic the same way we got in. It's not going to be the same ever, di ba? So kung sabi ni aking isang friend, kung wala ka natutunan sa pandemya, kawawa ka naman, di ba?
Tama.
We will not go back. We will not go back the same way we got in. We're supposed to have been transformed, and hopefully for the better. It's hopefully for the better.
Thank you so much, Marlon. So
Maraming
well put.
salamat.
Thank you. Such an intelligent and eye-opening conversation. Thank you.
Maraming salamat. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.